All right, hello and welcome to everyone who's joining our webinar today. We are going to start in a couple of minutes while people filter in. You can see the slide, so feel free to make a little introduction in the chat. You can tell us your first name, the city that you're logging in from, the career field that you're most interested in, and make sure that you are chatting to panelists and attendees. That's just a setting that you can toggle on your Zoom, and that way everyone can see where you're from and who you are. So yeah, we'll just get started in a couple of minutes, but feel free to make your introductions and just hang out. Okay, we'll just take one more minute. And sorry, once again, if you wanted to make your introductions, you can tell us your first name, the city you're logging in from, the career field you're most interested in, and once again, make sure you're chatting to panelists and attendees. All right, seeing more people filter in. That's great.
Got that wrong. Fat finger Deadman.
Okay. Let's go ahead. It's about 5:01, coming up on 5:02. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, welcome everybody to the Designing Your Career panel today. We have some of our amazing Pathstream alumni. We're going to have a great conversation with them. We're going to learn about their experience in the Pathstream program that they took and their experience that they had navigating the job search successfully, because all of our panelists today have wound up landing new roles that they're going to tell us how they got. My name is Anthony Jones, by the way. I'm a learning designer here at Pathstream, and I'll be your host for the evening. This is our third, I believe it's our third workshop in the Designing Your Career series. The first week, my wonderful colleague Lauren led a workshop on how to do informational interviews and networking. And last week, we talked to Pathstream CEO Eleanor Cooper and the head of career services, Amy Ahern, about economic trends in a post-pandemic world. And today we get to hear from our lovely alumni. So very excited that all of you have joined us, and it's going to be a great conversation. Just some logistics for those of you who have attended our other events. This will look mostly familiar. If you're new, just keep in mind that we will have a live Q&A at the very end. There is a Q&A button where you can put your questions. Feel free to put your questions in that Q&A at any time, but just keep in mind that we are going to save that Q&A for the very end. So we'll have some structured conversation with our alumni, and then we'll have a chance to answer audience questions. Once again, a recording of today's workshop will be emailed to you after the session. You can see any recording of any event that we've held in this Design Your Career series if you go to our YouTube page, youtube.com/Pathstream. You can watch the recordings there as well. So perhaps not surprising, our agenda today is the discussion with our Pathstream alumni, and then we'll do that audience Q&A that I just mentioned. Let's be really clear though about our goal before we get started. We want to have a conversation with our Pathstream alumni, and we want to hear specifically about how they navigated their job search after graduating from their specific program. We want to make this as pragmatic and useful as for everyone out there that's listening. So we're going to share tips and potentially even resources for the job process along the way to help you all if you are on your own path to finding a new career. But let's also welcome the alumni that we have. You can take a moment to see all of our wonderful former students who have gone on to land new roles here. We have Tareem Shahab, who's a Tableau data analytics graduate and now is a data analyst at Globe Life. Kendall Bennett, Facebook digital marketing graduate, who's now a marketing specialist at Pathstream. So she's one of those special cases where we've actually hired one of our graduates because we tend to do that when we see someone special. Angela Mason, who was also a Facebook digital marketing graduate. She is a brand success specialist at Abound. And David Delmonico, Tableau data analytics graduate, who's now a data analyst at Patrona Corporation. Thank you all so much, alumni, for joining us. Very excited for you all to be here. So let's go ahead and let's just kick things off with our first question. I'm curious, and Angela, we'll start with you. I'm curious, what was the pain point in your career that kind of caused you to seek out a Pathstream program and inspired you to make that leap to learn new digital skills?
Yeah, so, at the time, I was honestly stagnant in my career and I was unhappy and I wanted more. So I was at my previous job at the time, I was introduced to digital marketing and I just fell in love with it. So from there, I started researching, different programs or certifications in the area. And I ended up stumbling across Pathstream and it just seemed so perfect for me. It was self-paced. It was online. I was able to still work my full-time job. It was affordable. And they even had, professional services, someone helping you after you graduate the program. So it was a no-brainer for me to choose Pathstream.
Yeah, that's awesome. We hear that a lot from students who, they are balancing kind of a full-time career sometimes or other responsibilities with the coursework. So yeah, that's really cool to hear that you were able to kind of juggle those things successfully. Same question, David. Curious, what was, where were you at? Where was the pain point in your career where you started to seek out your Pathstream program? What inspired you?
I was unemployed for about a year and a half, and was getting nowhere. I had some people that were interested, but nothing that I was interested in. So I decided I was unhappy, and I decided that, while I'm here unemployed, why don't I do something more and maybe learn something? So I started looking on Google, basically started doing searches, and I came across Pathstream. And as Angela said, it was very affordable, so I decided to go the path of data analytics with Tableau because I had taken a few Tableau courses on LinkedIn and it was something I was interested in. So I decided, with my background in databases and SQL, I thought that maybe this would be a good path. And I was right, and Pathstream basically was my path to where I am today.
That's awesome too. I mean, yeah, using the time that you had and, figuring out, you had this interest in data analytics, but then taking it to the next level. That's also, it's a different story. It's an amazing story. And that's why we love having the variety of different alumni here because everyone has a different path, to your point. And Kendall, just moving right on to you, I'm curious, what was your path? What was the pain point that you were experiencing and how did you wind up not only as a student at Pathstream, but then as a marketing specialist working at Pathstream?
So I had earned my bachelor's degree in computer animation, and like many students finishing up their degree, I thought that, okay, you know what, this would be enough for me to actually get a job and everything. And that first year after graduating was freaking a roller coaster ride. It's like I ended up getting a certificate in networking and security. I ended up getting more job offers for that, but it wasn't something I was happy with. And after getting fired for putting in a 2-week notice, I realized, like, you know what? I want a safety net. It's like, if something like this happens again, I don't want to be in that financial situation. So I started blogging and created my own brand called Karabi Stories. Well, when the blogging community was like, yeah, you need to learn affiliate marketing, email marketing, and content marketing, all these different types of marketing, I realized I didn't know how to actually market myself or how to actually grow. So while I was working a full-time job as a multimedia designer, I came across the digital marketing program at Pathstream, and it was like, okay, you know what? If I'm really going to create this safety net with my personal brand, I need to know how to market myself. So I balanced the two, and it was a challenge sometimes, but taking the course helped me grow up my brand so that whenever I did get laid off due to COVID 2020, the digital marketing certificate helped me figure out how to market myself so that I could start freelancing.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. And we hear that a lot about, trying to get those digital skills to make yourself, to give yourself that safety net, or to kind of get something that's recession proof. We hear that term a lot. Tareem, same question. I'm curious, what was the pain point that you experienced, and how'd you wind up at Pathstream?
Yeah, so basically my career path was a bit of a mess, but it started off, I had plans to go into journalism. I majored in political science. I worked for my college newspaper, so I had solid plans to go into journalism and writing specifically. And then I went ahead and started interning for a copywriting internship and at a digital marketing company. And then I went on to become a copywriter, and I became a freelance copywriter. And I guess any freelancer can tell you that it's a little bit difficult in the beginning specifically. And I'm sorry, I think someone's saying that they can't hear me.
Sorry, what was that?
I think someone said that they can't hear me.
Your audio is a little bit faint. I can hear you, but I don't know if you wanted to switch from your earpods to just the computer audio. But I can hear you. It's just a little bit faint, I think, probably for some people.
I'm gonna go ahead and do that.
Okay. So we'll give you a second to get situated. But I mean, what I did hear from the story was pretty cool. I mean, going and studying journalism, thinking that your path is going to be in one direction and having your intention set on a particular job, and then having to pivot. And it's a story that we hear quite a bit, where you're headed on to one trajectory in your career, and then all of a sudden you realize that you need to kind of go a different direction, but you need a digital skill to make yourself competitive for those jobs. So it sounds like, you kind of saw that and then pursued the data analytics certificate as a result.
Yeah. It was a complete pivot. I had taken a management information systems course in college, and I remember I really liked it, but I didn't know how it would fit into my plan to become a writer in the future. And then as I continued copywriting, I did freelancing for about a year, and I realized that was just not for me. I wasn't enjoying it. It was a very niche area also that I was copywriting for. So I kind of felt stagnant as well. And so I kind of started looking for other courses, skills that I could enhance, because my resume just sort of felt a little dry. And I came across, data analytics again, specifically Tableau and the visualizations that, you were able to create in that using that specific tool. And I kind of, a part of me was like, okay, what if I want to go back to journalism again? And then I started looking into data journalism and data storytelling. And I thought that's perfect, because it fits into this need I have to be creative while also enhancing my skills and maybe gaining some hard skills. So I feel like those skills gave me a lot of flexibility. So if I wanted to be in the private sector, I could do that. But if I wanted to go back to media, but go back to writing and journalism and storytelling, I could do that as well. So that was perfect for me. And I just had to do a simple Google search to come across Pathstream, and they had a really great career program. They made sure, I felt like they made sure that, you were in it and then you were out with a job. So it worked out perfectly.
That's awesome. Your audio is much better, by the way. So
thanks. Sorry about the confusion in the middle.
No worries at all. And I think, all of you, what you're saying, what I'm hearing is frankly courage, because, in retrospect, you can say, yeah, I jumped on Google and then I did X and then I did Y and then I did Z and then I got a job, but it's not hard. It's not easy what you all did. It takes a lot of courage to realize, like, I'm not where I want to be right now, but I can change that. And I just want to highlight your courage, because you're all very humble people. You didn't mention that, but when I hear your stories, I hear a lot of elements that, frankly, are just, courageous. So well done to all of you. And yeah, just kudos.
Thank you.
So curious, if we can kind of dive into the learning experience itself. Angela, let's start again with you. I'm just curious, like, what did you enjoy the most about your learning experience as a Pathstream student, just when you were actually in the program?
Yeah, so just program overall, like I said before, it was super flexible. So I was working full time. I also had a part-time job on the weekends, like a side hustle. And so it was self-paced and very, very flexible. So that's what I really liked. But diving a little bit deeper into it was part one of the program. Part one was the hardest, but it was, what came out of it was invaluable. So, it really provided me with the secure, digital marketing foundations, understanding the foundations, knowing what you're doing. And, with that, you can take that to any job, or you can even start your own business if you want to. You'll have that forever.
That's amazing. David, I see you kind of nodding along. What about for you? What was your, what did you enjoy the most? What was your experience like as a student?
Again, Angela's kind of got it. It's, the first part was really hard, and I expected that it wasn't going to be easy. I went to school to be a geologist, so and then I changed to work with databases years later, and I expected it. I wanted something that was going to challenge me, but I didn't realize how much this was going to challenge me. And I'll tell you, I panicked a little bit at first when it came to the first project. And I started talking to my instructors, and I was like, the questions you're asking, I don't remember learning anything about this, and they kind of calmed me down, and I kind of breathed in deep and let go. And I realized that, yeah, it's all there. But as she said, the first one was the toughest one. After that, they got easier, but there was still a major challenge. And the data analytics with Tableau was no cakewalk, but all of it was fun. Even though I was panicked at first, once I realized, it's been a little time since I've been out of school, and this is going to challenge me. It was in the seat for the greatest ride I've had in a long time, quite honestly.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And it's so interesting because we hear that a lot from students. And I think, all of us on some level, we want to be challenged. We want to be put in a situation where we do have an obstacle, but we feel like we can also overcome that obstacle, or we have the tools and the support to do it. Curious, Kendall, does that resonate with you, or did you have a different experience, as a Pathstream student?
For me, what I enjoyed most was having a professor that could answer my questions. Since I had already been dabbling a little bit with marketing, the introduction wasn't as bad. What got me was when we entered into Google Sheets and Excel type stuff. I thought I knew Excel, and then I got into that course. I'm like, you know what? I take it back. I don't know Excel at all.
Yeah.
And fortunately, the professor, she was very patient, very active with the responses as well. Like if I felt like I was stuck, I could reach out to her and be like, okay, look, this isn't clicking. I don't know how I'm messing up this function, but it's not working. And even though it's recommended to add like 10 to 15 hours per week, the course also takes into account of you having to redo some of the videos and some of the reading assignments as well. So that particular course, I did have to loop around a couple of times to figure out what was going on, but I'm glad that it wasn't like, okay, we're going to rush you through this and you're just going to hop into the next thing. Like, no, it made sure it was broken down in bite-sized pieces until I at least understood enough to know how to Google my own questions.
Yeah, I'm curious, especially Tareem, because you were coming from such a different background. You're coming more from a writing or humanities background, and then getting into something like data analytics. What was that like for you those first couple days, and then your experience overall as a student?
Yeah, so I had some experience with SQL and Excel because I had taken a class and they had taught us like the basics of Excel and SQL. So I knew some of the lingo, like some of the basic lingo. But when we got into, say, Tableau, even though like I had seen it a little bit, I've seen the visualizations, it was just, I mean, we were building dashboards, we were building like stories and everything. And so it was a little bit challenging, but like David said, it was a lot of fun. And one of the things that I really liked about the certification was that it was heavily project based. I don't know if that's the case with other certifications, but with this specific Tableau data analytics certification, it was very heavily project based. Like they spent some time on the theory, but then it was like, okay, like this is how these tools are used practically and specifically in the field, because I felt like what was the great thing about the certification was that it was preparing us to have a job, and use it in our jobs. It was, it was never like if you get a job, it's when you get this specific job where you learn this is what you need to do. So I thought that was a great experience, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you so much for highlighting, the projects. And Lauren is listening, who'll jump in later, who's, our VP of learning design. And that's her big sticking point is, everything has to be project based and it has to be real world because, to your point, like it's got to be about the job at the end of the day. We're not just doing this to do this. We're doing it because we want to gain these skills to get the job, which is, a great segue to our next question, because you all talked about, the tough moments, the fun moments when you're in the course. Now that's one thing when you're doing the curriculum and you have to take multiple courses to get that certification, but then all of a sudden you have to enter the job search, right? And this is a different challenge. You've got the skills, you have the certificate, but as we all know, the job search can be really, really tough. And so I just want to hear about, what was the toughest moment that you all experienced during your job search, and how did you work through it? Did somebody or did something provide help to get you through that tough spot? And Angela, let's start with you again with this question.
Yeah, great question. So, I think everyone in life has experienced this. If you're just going through any type of job search, it's frustrating and it's hard. And for me, I graduated March of 2020, right when the pandemic hit. And it was just, I kept getting denied, denied, denied. I felt like people just wouldn't even give me the chance to have a conversation, and it could have been one, maybe I was brand new, but two, maybe because of the pandemic. It is what it is at this point, but it was very frustrating. But what helped me through it was really just reaching out to my family and friends. You know what I mean? It helps just to be able to talk about it. And there's so many emotions when that come with growing, with studying, with job searching, everything like that. And it's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to feel, discouraged. That's a part of it. But so my family and friends, they definitely helped me a lot. And then beyond that, at Pathstream, who helped me the greatest help was Amy Ahern, head of career services. She was so helpful just through everything. So again, at the end, you know, after you graduate, they have career services help you along the way. And she was there with me, I think 8 or 9 months. And because I couldn't find a job, and I was, you know, super discouraged at that point. And she helped me through everything, was always checking in with me, you know, and at that time I didn't have a lot of confidence. And so she would do like interview prep with me, and, you know, we would talk on the phone and just through everything. So thank you to Amy.
Shout out, Amy. We will hear more from her in a little bit, but yes, she deserves, you know, definitely a lot of kudos. David, I'm also very curious, you know, for you for this question, because you had mentioned, you know, even before you came to Pathstream, you'd been dealing with a period of unemployment. So what was it like for you afterwards? I would imagine that you were ready, you were so ready to get that job after you did the program, but I'm curious, like, what was the tough moment, and how did you get over that hump?
Well, even though I had a background in databases and SQL, and I thought, like Kendall, I knew Excel, didn't even come close to knowing it. You know, so I was, even though I had that background, this was a new career, you know, and I didn't know how to market myself. So the first interview, I was kind of panicked again, you know. It was like, how am I going to express what I know, what I've learned, and yet, you know, not come on too strong, but also not come out like a fool, you know. So I started reaching out to my instructors, and Angie Rojas and Leifer, I'm going to probably mess this up, Sigurdsson. And I basically just asked them because they were people that had been in the industry. And I wanted to get a sense of, you know, not so much what to say, but how to approach it, and not to get frustrated if I was being put down, you know, because, you know, like Angela says, you know, it's real easy to get down on yourself, you know, and, you know, even though you're really proud and you're happy that you got through this, and you're feeling strong, you know, inadvertently, these people that are interviewing you, they're gonna, some of them are gonna make you feel inadequate, you know, and that's the key there, is just to believe in yourself and to have a good support system. Like I said, I had my instructors. I ended up having getting Kelsey from Career Services to help me with my resume. She turned me on to a Kate Flamina, who helped me rewrite it and put things in the right, you know, format, so people wouldn't just say, you know, look at it and throw it away, put it in the circular file. Angie turned me on to a new course that was for career planning. Basically, it was still, I don't know if it was still in the blueprints, but it wasn't. Maybe it was hot off the stove, but that again was another course that was very it was no cakewalk, but if you went through it, and it gave you the things, the tools that you needed to be able to express myself in an intelligent way, to be able to come through as a confident, you know, worker, you know, for a data analytics with Tableau. You know, I was able to discuss and talk intelligently to people, you know, that were interviewing me, you know, about SQL, Excel sheets, you know, Tableau, stories, you know, dashboards, the whole nine yards. That was, besides all the other issues that were, you know, associated with Pathstream, that end part was like the clincher for me, you know, to know that I had a support system behind me when it was time to spread my wings, kind of sold it. quite honestly.
I mean, that's awesome, David. And I think, I'm so happy you articulated the emotional side of that journey too, because a lot of people who are listening now, or they're going to watch this later, they're going through it too. And we all do, we experience that, the feeling, like you said, of sometimes feeling inadequate or having to deal with rejection, because let's face it, in any job search, you have to deal with a lot of rejection to get to your end goal. And navigating that emotional terrain, it's not easy. It's not
No.
easy to just pick yourself up, every single day, even though we know we have to, but it's just not something you can snap your fingers and do like that. So thank you for speaking to that. And Kendall, I'm curious, what was your experience like? And I know, just because I've heard your story so many times, and the fact that you're a veteran, and what you learned, in your experience in the military, I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to how that experience might have also prepared you for the experience of the job search and navigating that terrain.
So one thing the military, especially working in the Navy on helicopters in a rescue squadron, taught me was that you can't expect to wait until you're ready before you actually do something. It's like with the military, they just push you out there and be like, learn as you go. And fortunately, that mentality kind of stuck with me even in the professional world. It's like, okay, look, I might not fit the job description 100%, but if I can do at least a good portion of it, I can learn the rest as I go. And when it came to taking the digital marketing program, I didn't take advantage of the career opportunities as much as early as I should have, because I still had a job. But 1 week after finishing the program, I ended up getting a layoff notice because of COVID. So I went into panic mode. And fortunately, Amy Adhern was there. I let her know everything that I did, and she was on it, like linking me to people on LinkedIn and everything, and trying to send me job postings as well. So now that I had this certificate, I'm like, okay, or the certification, I'm like, okay, what can I actually do concerning digital marketing? Like, what are some guidelines that I can provide to help me find a new job down in Florida when like thousands of people are getting laid off? And one of the lessons, since I gravitated more to like the social media marketing portion of the digital marketing program, was that when you're making posts, try to hop onto trends that are early on. If they've already been blasted off, you're kind of going to get caught up in the mess. If you catch it while it's young, you can kind of ride it and get exposure. And since that guideline helped me grow my TikTok page, it's like, okay, I wonder if this can help with job search as well. So one of the terms that I kind of picked up on that the courses used a lot was content creator. And since I was a multimedia designer at that time, I'm like, okay, not that many people might be looking for the term multimedia designer, but there might be some more people looking up the term content creator. So at that point on my LinkedIn page or my LinkedIn profile, I changed multimedia designer to content creator. Same with my Twitter page at that time as well. I changed it to content creator and pretty much tried to optimize my search engine to say, okay, look, I am a content creator instead of using the term multimedia designer. So while blasting myself on that portion of it, Amy also linked me to some people, and with that internal connection and being able to show them some of the projects that I did in the digital marketing course, along with some of the portfolio pieces that I've done like on my own and from college, that would really help me get into freelancing and pretty much stay afloat during that horrific COVID moment where everyone was just trying to survive.
Yeah, it's an excellent point, and we talked about it a little bit last week too, about the value of freelancing sometimes to bridge from one job to another. So that's, appreciate you calling that out, most definitely. Finally, Tareen, I'm curious to hear your experience as well. Obviously you're a data analyst now, you have that role, but do you remember when you were searching for that job, if there was a particular tough moment that you experienced and how you worked through it?
Yeah, so honestly, I feel like up until now, I always felt like I was looking for the next job, the next career move, the next place I needed to apply. And so I think all the way back when I was applying for like journalism jobs or internships, I just felt like I was looking for something new and a new career. And so, or not a new career, but just a new job. And I remember like just feeling really exhausted and kind of disillusioned with the job application process and things like that. Especially like, I kind of would have some trouble writing cover letters as well, because it was all about tailoring yourself and marketing yourself, and essentially, telling the whole process of just telling the person, the hiring manager, that you were good for the job when you weren't even sure if you were good for it yourself. And so I think that what really got me through that was just, it's going to sound, it was advice from my mom, who was like, just don't think, just apply. Because I was the kind of person, and to some extent I still am, if I see, qualifications that, some qualifications I might meet, some qualifications I won't, I will most likely not apply. And so, the advice now I give like other friends who struggle with that as well is like, just go ahead and apply anyway. Worst case scenario, you don't get a job. Best case scenario, you do get it, or you learn something from it, or, you get a technical interview, you learn how, you get better experience from that and things like that. So just the whole process of tailoring myself to, or tailoring my skills, and making sure that I sounded as if I knew what I was talking about, or I knew, what Tableau was, or how I could manage my way around it. I think that was just incredibly difficult, but like the rest of the panelists said, you just have to get into the thick of it, really. So, yeah.
No, I love that advice. I think, we can all look at a job description sometimes and we can become fixated on the things that we aren't. And we only see our deficiencies and the things that we aren't. And what you're suggesting, I think, is flipping that perspective of like looking at a job description, see the things that you are in that job description. See the bullet points there that you can nail, and let's focus on that instead of focusing on, the deficiencies. So I really like that change in perspective, and I loved all of your answers and very heartfelt stories. So thank you so much for sharing. We're going to have one more question here to everyone who's out there, who's listening, who maybe you've got a question in your mind that you want to ask one of our panelists, or you want to ask Amy who's on, or Lauren who can field questions too. Start to put those in the Q&A, but we'll go ahead and tackle our last question here. And this is just all about, practical tips that we can share with people that are listening either live or going to listen to this recording later. Just what was the best advice that you received during the job search, and how maybe did you put that advice into action? So Angela, want to start with you again. Just what advice would you share? What's the thing that you know now that everyone should know who's starting a job search today?
So much. So for me personally, I started to overthink and overanalyze, and you can almost ruin opportunities for yourself by doing that. It could be detrimental to you. So don't overthink, don't overanalyze, just go for it. Worst case scenario, okay, maybe you get declined, but you learned something in the process. You grew as a person in the process. And every denial is going to help you move up and up. So that's one. But two, make every effort to set yourself up for success. So, the little things that come to your resume, to your cover letter, and then, just look the part as well and be confident in yourself and whatever that means for you. And then for me specifically, I was very rigid in my thinking, and I was very like laser focused on digital marketing. But of course I studied, right? Like I have the certificate, so that's what I wanted. But that being said, I really wasn't open to anything beyond that. And so, this job specifically that Amy ended up sending me, which is where I got hired, she sent it to me and she's like, well, you're qualified for it. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I just wasn't sure about it, you know? So again, because I had such a rigid way of thinking. So really it's just be open to new opportunities, and every person you come in contact with, you know, make a connection, make that contact, connect with them on LinkedIn. You never know where that could take you in the future.
Very, very apt advice. Thank you, Angela. Great to share that. David, same question. What would you, if someone's starting the job search today, something that you know now that you didn't know then, but you think everyone should know when they're kind of starting the job search today? What's the best advice you could give?
You know, I think everybody is on the panel has pretty much touched on it. It's life experience. You know, I was in the Navy as well, and that experience, you know, with Marines and being on a ship and working on aircraft, you know, like Kendall said, they just throw you out there. You know, it's either learn, you know, you got the stuff behind you, you know, go for it. And as Tareem has even said, you know, even if you don't think that the job, or Angela said as well, you know, that the job has got exactly the things that you, the job, you know, description has got exactly the things that you have studied or that you think you're good at or something like that. Throw it out there anyway, because you never know where it's going to lead. You just never know, you know, as like Angela says, LinkedIn, you know, you connect with somebody and before you know it, the whole world opens up. You know, it doesn't necessarily happen like that, might not happen until the 57th time, but it will. And that's the point. Don't stop. Keep going. Don't get frustrated. You got what it takes because you've already shown that you got it. You passed the course.
That is, we need to record that speech. So just so I can listen to it, David, so I can get myself pumped up. You're getting me fired up over here. But it's so true, because I think a lot of times we can tell ourselves certain negative stories that prevent us from putting ourselves out there or taking that chance. But you got to give yourself a chance. You got to get out there. It's as hard as it might be sometimes. So thank you for sharing that. Very well said. Kendall, same question, but best advice you could give to folks out there kind of that are on the job search now.
So I know there are probably a lot of people like I am. Like, I grew up in a family that's like, don't be boastful, don't brag, don't be too prideful. And then I get ready for an interview and I'm being told, hey, brag about your skills. I'm like, okay, that's conflicting with everything that I've been raised not to do up until this point. And one mentality shift that helped me was, instead of considering it as bragging about yourself, form it in a way where you want to let the employer know what skills you have to help them. So let's say you had a friend that needed to move and they're panicking, they don't have a way to move and you have a truck. Chances are you will be motivated to let them know, hey, I have a truck, I can help you move. It's not that you're bragging about having a truck. You're saying, I have the tools that you need in order to get this situation done smoothly. So whenever you find a job that you really want, like, really explore the job description, look at their mission statement, figure out what their pain points are, and then figure out what skills is it that you have that you can use to help them. Like, if you see that their social media pages, it's active, but it's not as active as it could be, let them know about your social media skills. Like, let them know how you've been able to use like certain guidelines to help grow your own stuff. If you're really good with data analysis and you see that they are striving to grow or expand to new audiences, let them know, like, hey, look, I can take the data that you have and see if I can find a matching audience so we can see if we can expand out to them. So that way, it's not exactly you bragging or being boastful about yourself. You're forming it in a way to say, hey, look, I have these particular skills. I can help you. Like, I want to help your company grow.
It's very well said. And I think, yeah, every time you walk into an interview, that employer, they really want you to be the person. They really are looking for the right person for that job, and they're really rooting for you to be that person. And so to tell your story in such a way that it shows to them that you are the one that they're looking for. Yeah, you're right, Kendall. It's not boasting. It's just, it's helping them solve a problem. And yeah, I love that answer. And we are going to have a future workshop on how to best tell your story. So it's a great plug for that. Last but not least, Hareem, just curious, kind of same question. Take us home here. Tell us the best advice that you received during the job search.
Sure. One of the best pieces of advice I received was actually from Lauren, who's here, and she was my career coach. Essentially, she helped me out a lot, and she essentially encouraged me to set goals for myself, and set weekly goals, set daily goals, and realistic goals, of course. You don't want to overwhelm yourself, because you're already overwhelmed with the job application process. It's so nerve-wracking, especially if you're making a career change like I did. It was just, it could get a little bit overwhelming and frustrating at times. And so to maintain consistency, to maintain maybe even like some confidence in yourself, set some realistic goals for yourself and stick to them no matter what. So for that day, I told myself I'm going to be applying to 2 jobs today. I made sure that I did that. If I said, okay, I'm going to, for my job application process, if I'm going to be, if I've told myself I'm going to send this resume out for review, I was doing that no matter what. And that actually, really helps with staying consistent, and also like gives you a sense of accomplishment and boosts your confidence, which is so incredibly important in this process. And then another piece of advice I would say is, especially to Pathstream students or anybody who's considering to go with, a Pathstream program, is really take advantage of the career services, I would say, because one thing that I struggled with in college was finding a good career services program. And so over here, I felt like there was a lot of guidance that was provided. It wasn't exactly hand-holding, but it was entirely upon the student to like reach out. But there was a lot of resources, a lot of great cover letter and resume templates that we could follow, a lot of great walkthroughs on how to best tell your story, how to succeed in your technical interviews or regular interviews. So I would really advise that, Pathstream students, or really anywhere, find a good place where you can get career advice and career resources. So.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic advice. Great answers once again from everyone. And to the folks out there that are listening, if you have questions yourself that you want to put in the Q&A, please do so. Now, this isn't the end of the event, but I just want to say thank you again to all of our panelists for sharing their stories tonight. It's not the easiest thing in the world sometimes to talk about, so thank you for everything that you were willing to open up about. And for the people out there who are listening, put any questions you might have in the Q&A for our panelists, or for Amy or Lauren, our career service experts. And for folks out there that may be interested in Pathstream programs, you can see everything that we offer by going to pathstream.com/programs. We have some new things coming out, some things that we're very, very excited, including the foundations of data science with Python, and that's going to be offered by NYU and Emory. So some very cool stuff that's on the horizon. But for now, I want to pass it over to Lauren. And Lauren, anything that you're seeing in the chat, would love to hear what you're seeing from our participants and any questions that might have been coming up.
Yeah, thank you guys again for sharing. Looking for a job is super emotional. And so you guys are touching on that. And I really appreciate how honest you're being. This wasn't a specific question, but it's kind of looping in some of the other things I'm seeing in the chat. But I'm curious, when you're in these interviews for these jobs that you've gotten, how do you talk about your, Pathstream program? How do you talk about the skills that you got in a way that's authentic and not, overly boastful or not representative of what you did. So I guess I want to hear a little bit about how the interviews have gone and what you've said in those interviews that you think have resonated with the hiring managers.
Lauren, who do you want to take that one on first?
I think it's anybody on the panel that feels like they're inspired to speak.
Well, I can just say this is actually just a follow-up to what Kendall was saying earlier. Just focus on, you have all of these skills and foundations and knowledge. Just focus on the value that you're providing for the potential employer. And beyond that, just a follow-up, always do your research on the company. So that's what I got for you.
Yeah, definitely with what Angela said about doing your research. It's like a lot of times, like you don't have to wait until the very end to ask questions for the interviewer. Like they might ask you a question, you might try to answer it as well as you can. And if you notice something like on their web page, like let's say with Pathstream, like their goal is to make make education more affordable. So if you bring that up and the interviewer answers the question for you, sometimes they might hint at something like they may need improving on. And if you hear that, you can pop onto that and like, oh, I know how to do that. Like you mentioned Excel. Like, yeah, I took the course for the Pathstream. They went over Excel. I know how to create like pivot tables and everything, and kind of play ping pong with the conversation. Like you might not know everything to start off with because it's a new interview. It's like the only thing you know about the company is whatever the interviewer introduces and what you've learned online. So if you can guide the conversation sometime by asking your own questions before the very end, sometimes that helps a lot to give you those missing pieces to say, okay, I have a skill that can help with that. Let me guide the conversation to answer that pain point.
Yeah. And Kendall, related to that, there's a question in the chat, and Angela, I think that you might be helpful too with this one, but are there any questions that you can ask an interviewer that would help you stand out in the interview process?
That's a good question. I actually don't have anything specific to add to that, but I just will say in a general sense, always remember that interviews, it's a two-way interview here. When you're going out and you're talking to potential employers, it needs to be a right fit for you. You need to make sure that, they're a good employer, different things like that. So always remember, ask as many questions as you want, and it's a two-way interview.
And Angela, I know you mentioned research before, and you were very thoughtful with how you researched companies, which then I'm sure informs the kinds of questions you ask. But how did you go about researching a company? What did that concretely look like?
Yeah, good question. So just in general, always, look at their website, always read their about story. And then when it came to like the digital marketing certification, you can do a social media analysis, look at the different things, look at their marketplace, what they're doing in the marketplace overall, what they're doing on their socials. And then also LinkedIn is such a great platform that you can find people who are a part of it, and you can, find out what they're interested in. And you can also bring that up in interviews as well. So just different things like that. You can get really creative. Just do your back research, one with the company, but two, the people associated with the company.
I wonder if I could say something. To Angela's point, she's absolutely right. At least from my standpoint. But my experience was a little bit different. I started when I was looking for the position that I had ended up with. I was kind of just shotgunning, anything that was a data analyst. I was doing searches on Tableau, and this, several of them come up through LinkedIn. So I just started going down the line. Boom, boom, boom. Didn't do any research or anything like that. Just see if anybody was going to, cast the line out, see if you kept the fish, and then go from there, And it was funny because where I ended up was a third-party contractor for the Department of Defense, working on submarine maintenance, which is, I didn't know anything about this company, didn't even think I was going to get the job. It was like in the back of my mind when I applied for it, and then all of a sudden out of the blue, there they come. But my resume showed that I had Navy experience, showed that I had database experience, showed that I had Pathstream, Tableau, which was one of their keywords, and data analyst, which they were just starting the group. I am the first data analyst for this company, and they're gonna hire it. It's which is very exciting because I am the type of individual that I love to get in and build things. I've always been that way. So it's just she's absolutely correct. I did all that stuff at first, but that's not what got me this job, which is it's just, roll the dice, and it just happens that way. And I totally agree with her, but my experience has been just a little bit different, this time,
Oh, and for the interview question, one question I really like to ask is, what does a high activity day look like in this role? Like, many times I can get a lot of information just from that one question, whether it's concerning customer or concerning the software or just having visitors come in, that it gives me a good opportunity to kind of really quickly analyze, like, okay, is it something I need to focus on for software? Do I need to focus on customer service skills? And a lot of times that one little question of what does a high activity day looks like can kind of guide you as to what skills you should pitch back to them to be like, okay, look, for the worst case scenario, I can help you with that.
That's great. Thank you. It looks like the last question that's kind of come in is about if you guys have any fun stories or funny stories or interesting stories about a job search process that you've done, or anything about like that kind of has happened to you during the job search process.
So one thing like I greatly appreciate with Pathstream is their career services. And Amy, she managed to connect me with, I believe her name was Mary from Matheson, who was looking for a social media person, like not exactly for marketing, but just someone who can manage the social media pages. And from the stuff that I learned from, not only from the Pathstream course, but what I had been doing on my own, that was the first time I've ever been told that I was overqualified for a role. Like, it was like one of the, like my most prideful moments of not getting a job. I'm like, really? Like, it went from an interview to more like a casual discussion of, yeah, you can improve this by doing that. Instagram cares more about this, but Twitter cares more about that. But even though I didn't get that particular role, Mary from Matheson ended up connecting me with Ambika from Zeit, and that's what got me into freelancing, like creating some of their social media stuff. And one thing I greatly advise is that whenever you go into these interviews, like, yeah, you may or may not get the job, but go in with the mindset that you could get at least something out of it. Like, even though I did not get that particular role with Matheson, I did gain a very valuable connection who was able to turn around and be like, hey, I know someone who can do this. It was kind of above what we could afford, but maybe y'all can reach out to them. And honestly, that's like one of the most impactful lessons I learned from this whole hiring process.
Yeah, right on, Kendall. That's exactly it. People don't realize how much you can learn, and each one of these interviews is a learning experience. And the more that you do it, the better you get at it. It's really it. I think I lost my video.
Thanks, David. Any other thoughts from the panelists on final last words?
I say definitely take advantage of LinkedIn as well, because there are so many resources. It's not just for applying for jobs. Like, send out connections, like people who have like a similar job role, like ask if they're open to explaining what their role is like. There's groups on LinkedIn as well where you can jump in, gather more information from there. And even if you have access to LinkedIn Learning, like, don't stop learning. Like, once you get done with the program, figure out like what it is that you feel most comfortable about specializing in, and continue learning for that.
Awesome. Great.
Yeah, she's right. In fact, I'm thinking of taking the Python course with Pathstream. As soon as it comes out, I'm going for it. You know?
Yeah. All right, Anthony, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lauren, for surfacing those questions. Thank you once again to all of our amazing panelists. Appreciate you, so much for telling your stories. And to everyone out there who's listening, make sure that you tune back in 2 weeks, because we're back not next Thursday, but the Thursday after that on June 10th for another one of Lauren's wonderful workshops for how to use design thinking to design your career. And then on June 17th, Lauren is leading another fantastic workshop. This really ties into a lot of things that the panelists said today about, learning how to tell your story the most effective way possible when you're in interviews and when you're in the job search. So June 17th, mark that on your calendar. She's going to kind of show us how best to tell our stories. And then finally, we're going to wrap up this whole series on June 24th with some job search stories. And to that last question about sharing funny stories, this is going to be more about funny stories and, just taking a moment to laugh, because, the job search can be so serious. And so sometimes it's nice to have a moment of levity. And that'll be a live podcast that we will be recording. So make sure you're a part of that. And if you want to see this recording or any of our previous series, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Pathstream. But yeah, thank you so much for joining, and we hope everybody has a wonderful evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.